Nice to catch up with you. First of all, of course, it's that time of the season, of course, where it's all about recruitment because your players are not with you at the moment. So just bring your supporters up to date with how is it all going for you?
Yeah, it's going very well in terms of we've got plenty of targets that we've identified, and the areas of the pitch where we need to strengthen. We have a good idea on the type of profile of player we want, but May's notoriously very slow in terms of anything really major happening in terms of getting players through the door. The season's still running, isn't it, in the EFL with the playoffs, so we're still very, very early on. It's just a case of making contact with agents and representatives and players themselves, because you still can speak to the players, believe it or not, just to obviously sell the positives of coming to join us. We're further down the road with some players than others. You get plenty of setbacks where you get quite far down the road and then it becomes a no for whatever reason. So then you move on to your next targets, which is why obviously it's important that you do have quite a few in every position that we want to fill, so that obviously if we do get negative responses for whatever reason, we can then very quickly move on to new ones.
When you meet up with these players, and you probably already spoke to some players and some agents as well, what's your selling point? How do you go about it? This is your first real involvement in the recruitment. You've seen it all with previous managers and previous coaches, but you're at the head of the ship basically this time. So what's your selling point?
Well, with the players that we want to bring in, we want to bring players that are going to come in to improve the team, not the squad. We're very much identifying players across the board who are going to give us better quality rather than quantity, which is why obviously it's the team we need to improve, not the squad. So with those players, the big selling point is they're going to play a major part in not only what happens on the pitch, but what happens off the pitch here. We spoke numerous times, haven't we, about discipline and standards, and the players that we want to bring in very much fit that profile in terms of what they can bring off the pitch as well, because it contributes massively to the whole feel and environment of the club. And obviously they're good players as well. So we've set our targets high in terms of who we want to bring in. So that's the major selling point in terms of the whole impact they can have with us. And beyond that, obviously, everybody knows that we create a good environment here where we're a developing club. So that doesn't matter whether that player is 35, 25 or 20. They know they're going to come here and improve as players as well. So those are the key major selling points. And the good thing when we get them in the building as well to speak to them, which we've managed to do with quite a few players, is we show them the training ground that we've got, and I think it takes some of them aback because whilst in stature we are quite a small club, the training ground obviously is well above our station, if you like, in terms of how big we are as a club. It's still a championship training ground that we've got here with plenty of facilities that allow those players to come into a positive working environment. So those are the three key things that we hope act as a selling point for us, really.
It is early days for you, of course, but is it as you expected, this recruitment period? Is it all about, trying to encourage the players to get here, then all of a sudden money comes into it? Is it like that, or are you finding it just nice and steady?
It's frustrating on some days, and on other days it's rewarding. Sometimes you walk out the building at 4:30 really positive because we made lots of progress in terms of getting players to come down to speak to us, or agents have told us that the players have expressed an interest to come, and they're really quite positive in terms of what we can provide here. And then on other days that all falls flat on its face because there's certain factors that we've not been able to provide that other clubs maybe higher up the chain, or even in some cases in our league, have been able to provide. So that means that hits a dead end and you move on. So you very much have to keep a positive mindset, because, as I say, it changes from day to day in terms of how much progress you make or not.
The one thing about this particular football club, it's never really dabbled in agents' fees. It might have done little bits, but not big style. And when you see that league table, you're probably proud that you haven't had to deal with it. But is it changing? Is the world of football changing for Cries in terms of working a bit closer to agents, getting agents involved?
We have an open dialogue with agents, and we know that's really, really important. And the ones that we dealt with that have been great. There's some great agents out there. Obviously, they get a bad name for certain reasons because of things that are reported in the press. But the ones we've dealt with so far have been fantastic. Of course, they have their agents' needs at heart because primarily they're representing them. But they are quite sympathetic towards the situation that we're in as a club, and where we're at and what we can offer and the parameters that we can work in financially. So it's obviously about having that open dialogue between all three parties, player, club and agent, and we've managed to get that so far. And hopefully that'll lead to us, being able to get some players over the line sooner rather than later.
You've talked about, you talked with players and agents that you're trying to bring in. You've assessed that squad, that retain list is out. Is there some players that you may be looking to try and move out to give you more room and a bit more money to bring in those that you really want? Is that the way you're looking at it as well? That's
always a possibility, and that's a two-way street. Of course, that gives us freedom, obviously, to have a bigger budget to extend and obviously diversify the type of player that we can bring in. And also there'll be players in the squad that we feel might need the opportunity of a new start. But with regard to that, that again is a slow process because those things don't just happen overnight. So the needs of the player and the club obviously don't always work within the same time scale. So it is very much a jigsaw puzzle that you're trying to put together, and sometimes you don't have all the pieces at once. So it is a very patient sort of process that you have to go through, and a strategic one really as well. So again, that doesn't play out during May. You start to put the pieces out on the table during May and then put the jigsaw together really during June and maybe even early July. So that's where we're at really in that sense.
I suppose it has to be a two-way working relationship, doesn't it, with the club and the player that you may be looking to say go and look elsewhere. You've got to get that spot on for both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to fit both parties, and if it doesn't, then there isn't any movement in that sense. If it does, and we believe that will be the case with one or two, then it allows obviously those players to go on to forge a career elsewhere, and perhaps play more games than they would here, and obviously gives us a bit more room for manoeuvre in terms of incoming players.
Your fans have been watching what's been going on, of course. They love it, don't they? Talks of players coming in, players coming out. You made that retain list, you offered your scholars the first professional contract. There was two players not signed there. We've seen all that. Zach Williams and Connor Salisbury. Updates on Zach Williams for you? Yeah,
we're very hopeful that will be concluded very soon. There's a willingness from both Zach as the player and obviously ourselves as a club to get that concluded, as I say, sooner rather than later. There's nothing major holding that up. Just one or two bits and pieces that you get with contracts in general. Because there's a lot that go into contracts these days. Obviously, it's not just a case of length of contract and value of the contract. There's all sorts of other things that go into it. And Zach's a valuable asset who's going to be an outstanding player both for us and, being brutally honest, will play at a much higher level than where we're currently at in the future. So we're hopeful for good news on that very soon.
And of course, it's nearly that 2 weeks is nearly over now. When you give your players 2 weeks away from the building, they're going to be coming back shortly. What can they expect? What is it all about? Is it all about hard work and no football, or do you mix it up in your real first start of a pre-season?
Well, they started some work from home this week, so that begins today. So as we speak right now, we're hoping that 20, 30 players are running around fields local to them in Warrington and Stoke and Chester and wherever else they live. But they rejoin us back in the building from next week. So that will look on a Tuesday and a Thursday like more of a cardiovascular and conditioning programme, whereas on the Saturday, which is still from home, they'll do some running, some hard running to obviously keep their bodies in good condition, ready for when we do start the pre-season on June the 22nd. So over the next 4 or 5 weeks, that's how it'll look. So that, as I say, they're ready for what's going to be a very difficult pre-season when we resume.
And you've got a couple of tasty fixtures as well in the pre-season. I know you like to get around the non-league clubs, that's football clubs have always done that. But you've got a couple of championship clubs, one new championship club and one established championship club.
Yeah.
Coming to Crewe, just tell the fans who they are.
Yeah, we're really pleased with the pre-season programme. That's been finalised now. On 3 consecutive Saturdays, we've got Barnsley away, which will take place at their training ground, because it's early on in pre-season, so their pitch won't be ready. And then back at our place at Gresty Road, we've got West Brom on the 16th of July, I think it is, and then the following week, which is the final Saturday before the season starts, we've got Rotherham. So 2 different levels of opposition in terms of, whilst they're in the same league, they'll provide different challenges in terms of the way that they play. So we're pleased with that, and as you mentioned, we've got some really good non-league teams that we're going to visit as well early on in the pre-season programme to allow the players to obviously get into playing mode again. So there's lots of variety there, and it'll give us lots of different things to work on, lots of different challenges.